President Bola Tinubu has suspended the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, Dr. Betta Edu, with immediate effect over allegation of diversion of 585 million naira meant for the vulnerable persons in Akwa Ibom, Cross River, Ogun, and Lagos states into a private account instead of the ministry's account. Suspension is in line with President Tinubu's avowed commitment to upholding the highest standards of integrity, transparency and accountability in the management of the Commonwealth of Nigerians, as well as public finance, which entails the management of a country's revenues, expenditures, and debt load through various government and quasi-government institutions. It therefore becomes imperative that we explore strategies, insights, and experts' advice on navigating the complex landscapes of public funds to ensure financial stability and making sound fiscal decisions for a better future. Nigeria Today will be focusing on how to improve the lives of citizens through better management of public funds. Thanks for joining us. I am your carrier, Clinton, and welcome to Nigeria Today. Now, joining me to discuss how to manage public finance is Professor Ken Ife. He's an international development consultant and development economist. You're welcome.
Thank you for having me.
And we also have with us here in the studio Chief Obin Nawaka. He's the Director General, Committee of Youth on Mobilization and Sensitization, CYMS. Glad to have you join us.
Thank you, it's my pleasure.
I will start with you, Obina. So tell us your reaction on the entire scene that played out from over the weekend down to today, especially the suspension of the Humanitarian Affairs Minister. And of course, we also understand she also has been invited by the EFCC and Anti-Graft. So tell us, it's your general assessment of the whole situation?
Yeah, thank you. For us that are coming from that side, what I mean by that side, different from the youth aspect, from the progressive family, from whatever I can call it, but it's quite unfortunate. It's heartbreaking for us as young people and also members of the ruling. So we are not happy that this thing is happening right now. That
because she's also a youth.
Yeah, she's also a youth. We are just age grade. She's 37, and people like us who are also less than 40. You know, Mr. President has given young people, especially the women, opportunity to serve. And this narrative, I don't know how it's going to speak or how it's going to go well to Mr. President who has given us opportunity. But from all things, we are not happy. We want to also use this medium to appeal to the general public. The outcry from the people is not appealing. And the decision of the suspension by the Mr. President is also, it's called for. And Mr. President does not have option not to suspend her so that the EFCC can carry out an investigation, and they have invited her. But I feel that Dr. Betta, she's old enough to defend herself, in as much as she said there's nothing wrong in what she has done or she did it. But I can comfortably tell you that there's a lot of circumstances that surrounded these things before it became so open. If you look at the people that have been suspended so far, both of them are female. The first person served under the former Minister of Humanitarian. So I think there's been a kind of tussle among the power play and all those things. So women should learn how to work effectively among themselves. Well, there will be cooperation. That is not appealing that such thing is coming from a young person and also somebody that works so hard to support the election of the current president. So it's not appealing. We are not happy.
Thank you, Obina. Now, Prof, the same humanitarian ministry, the former minister appeared before the EFCC this morning, and this afternoon, the present one, or of course, she's just been suspended, appeared before the EFCC this afternoon. Now, how would you react to this? still on the same allegation of corruption.
That's a coincidence, isn't it? It's an allegation. I hope it doesn't get proven to be true. But as my colleague has put it, it raises a lot of concern for especially young people who are being given brilliant opportunity to engage in governance. But we're all there to learn lessons. In terms of public service, public funds, there are very clear rules found in many of the books and acts. But the one that is more focused on fiscal responsibility, especially in respect to probity, accountability, transparency and prudence in the management of public fund, is the Fiscal Responsibility Act 2007. That brought everything together. It brought the medium-term expenditure framework, the fiscal strategy paper, and it also brought debt, anything concerning debt and debt management and debt sustainability issues. It also deals with remittances. You see, last week, the Minister of Finance released a circular asking all the MDAs that they will have sub-treasury account, TSA account, which is actually going to the third gear, because now the Accountant General's office will now put their hand on the trigger of those revenues. They want to take out 50% as it hits the account. And then the other 50%, they would have to manage it and then eventually retire the account, because the law says 80% of the operating surplus have to be remitted to the Consolidated Revenue Fund. But Gear 1 was from 2007. Go and do it and give us a return after a year. Most of them were not doing it. Some were even doing two accounts, one account for the General and a separate different account to Accountant General. Both accounts don't talk to each other. Then they moved to second gear in 2020 when Finance Act says, look, we're coming down to clamp on your money. We're going to take 50%, which is cost to revenue. And so they were asked to still do account, even to some extent do quarterly, and then put in the budget projections on this surplus so that we will know what to expect. Some are not doing it, some are doing it, some are not doing it half-hearted. So they now moved to Gear 3 last week. I'm going to clamp your money. And that's what they have done last week.
Okay, but back to you, Obinna. You see the move by the present administration. The president had said when he was swearing in the ministers, I want delivery. Okay? And if you don't, you face the consequences or you are out. So what does it tell, seeing what just happened, what does it tell of the present government?
For what you said, the present government, they are prepared, especially the president. And if you look at before the assumption of their office and all those things, they had a lot of retreats. They organized retreat for all of them. And in this retreat, a lot of things happened, where all these things that we're talking about supposed to have taken place, which also took place. Now, when it comes to the issue of responsibility and all this, one thing is to be eager or be agitating or be willing to take over a certain position. But the most important thing is the ability to deliver. You see, like we young people, over some time, we'll be saying we want a certain percentage to be given to us, especially the women, affirmative, they talked about 35%. If you look at the cabinet, Mr. President have done so well since the history of Federal Executive Council. The women have been fully represented. Even if you look at even the Ministry of Youth, it's also been headed by also a woman. So that is when you will now realize that it's not about having a political position. It is your willingness, ability to deliver. And when you're being given responsibility, it is an avenue, opportunity to show that yes, you are ready. Because if you fail to be responsible, nobody will join you to face the consequences of your irresponsibility. You can see what is happening today. Yes, the EFCC just quitted for Mr. President to suspend Dr. Betta Edu. Now they've invited her. Mr. President will not be there to answer for her. So Mr. President have taken and before Mr. President took that decision, there's a lot of public outcry. And even from the opposition members are also watching the decision from Mr. President. In other, you have first and foremost suspended the first, in fact, it's unfortunate that the first NSRP boss, who was also screened by the Senate, was also suspended. And the also woman also started with the responsibility to oversee the ministry, also so now both of them are women. So it is when you will now realize that Mr. President wants people that is going to deliver. He doesn't care where you're coming from, doesn't even care what you are even doing, maybe to please the people from his own zone. If you look at the letter sent to the Attorney General of Federation to approve those funds, 4 states were just mentioned, were captured in that state. 1 is Akwa Ibom, 2 is Lagos State, 3 is Ogun State, 4 is Cross River State, where the minister is coming from. A lot of agitation here and there that the approval or the program for vulnerable people is targeted to please some certain kind of people. Well, Mr. President may not even say anything about that, but when the consequences arise from the mismanagement of fund, you go and face the consequences. So Mr. President is determined to make sure that the administration of Renewed Hope succeed and it is competent people around him. So the decision he has taken is quite commendable, and we pray that everything will also become fine.
Professor Ken, it does appear with all that is going on, it does appear that some persons in the public office do not still understand the importance of proper management of funds. So tell us, how important is it to understand this?
Yeah, I train officers from the Accountant General Office. I train officers from Fiscal Responsibility Commission that is in charge of these regulations, this Fiscal Responsibility Act, as well as many MDAs, on how to comply with the law. So there's a lot of ignorance when you go around the MDAs on the level. Say, for example, this operating surplus template. There's a template that was developed by Fiscal Responsibility Commission and with the help and support from World Bank that actually gives you the parameters for working out what is your operating surplus, eligible and ineligible expenditures and things. And I find it difficult. I try to explain to them. And some of them think you're talking to yourself. Say, for example, to run a government effectively, I question, why would you want to spend hundreds of millions buying 100% cash generators, certain things, capital equipment, when it will not all be allowed in 1 year's statement? You have to depreciate over some years, 5 or 10 years. So why spend the whole money? Why don't you lease so that you can free cash? Instead of paying 200 million, you can use 20 million and then that will all go through the account, and then you release the other 180 million to run the business. So you try to explain that. And then they have to listen to that, because now that 50% of their revenue is going to be taken ab initio from as long as the money hits, they are now going to face that reality that they have to be very efficient in allocating their resources. So in answer to your question, it's not just the MBAs, but also state governments, because we also train state government agencies. There's not a lot of knowledge is very, very sparse in those areas.
Okay. Now, Obinna, we hear often of public officials, involving his management of funds. Like you rightly said, the president is not, he doesn't care whose ox is God. As long as you flout the rules, you are going in for it. Yeah. So he just showed and gave an example, so everybody will definitely be sitting up. Okay. So what exactly are the public office holders lacking, in your opinion?
Yes, what they are just lacking is lack of preparation. They are only thirsty. Some of them are thirsty to occupy certain political office. They are not prepared. They don't even have fear of public office, because if you have fear and respect for the public, there's some certain things you shouldn't do with public fund. 2, they don't even listen to advice. If you look at what has led to the suspension of Dr. Betta Edu, she failed to listen to advice because she felt that she's close to Mr. President. Now, the Attorney General, they released a statement or a memo that they advised her before, but she refused to adhere to the advice. She still went ahead to instruct them to release that fund to a private account. Now, and if you look at those things, that is where you now realize that it is not an error from her own aspect. She failed to listen to advice. So if you are preparing for public office, you have to be a cool-headed person, even if you have to be a cool-headed person before, but you have to listen to advice and be careful in management of public fund. It's too early. We're just a few months into the new administration, and this is happening. So, you know, they are not prepared to serve. They are not prepared to take over some certain position. That is why if you see some public office holder, the position you place them, they will complain that there is no money there because they don't have the mental ability or the technical know-how to drive the ministry agencies or department. They are only focusing on the ministry agents of the department where there is big amounts of money that are generated so that they can loot some certain funds. So they are not prepared to serve. They are only prepared, you know, just to occupy some certain positions. So I think there should, this calls for a lot of renovation. What do I mean by renovation is that the retreat that Mr. President organized for them may not even be enough. In that retreat, they will have people from the Akata General Federation that will come and guide them. And even the financial act that is not even involving the Akata General Federation. The Akata General Federation just accepted themselves. They know we advised her, but she still went ahead to issue us a letter that we should release the fund. But they were not also implicated because the act does not even say that on no account shall the Akata General Federation allows public funds from the ministry especially to enter, to be sent through a private account. The Akata General is not involved. It's only the ministry. And why is it that? Because she is the minister overseeing the ministry. So, and she signed the letter instructing the ministry, the Akata General Federation, to release the fund to a public or to a private account. So you can see there's the act himself need to be revisited so that the Akata General will now have their right and say no. According to the act, we are not going to watch any minister give us a memo or give us instruction to release some certain fund into a private account. So these things has to be revisited. So this training or the retreat needs to be a continuous something that they will engage people, professionals from other sectors, not only government agencies to come and engage them. There are some other private sectors that are specialists in giving orientation or trainings to our federal executive cabinet so that they will be prepared and know what they need to do when they are given such a position. So it's quite unfortunate, but we from that aspect, especially the young people, we are not happy that it's bringing another image to us. Tomorrow, maybe somebody will say, if they give them opportunity again, they will misuse it. Please, we are using this opportunity to beg Mr. President again that we, the young people, we are sorry on her behalf. It's an error. We are optimistic that she's going to learn from it because she's a hardworking woman who has put in her best to make sure that we arrive at this stage.
Okay, Professor Ken, you also talked about training, MDAs on, public finance, management of public finance. Correct. Now, tell us, what are some of the principles of managing public finance? And for those you've been training, has it been yielding results?
Of course it does. You know, when I told you that the finance minister has moved to the third gear by making sure that the accountant general's office put a handle on the trigger, just put their hand on the trigger for the receipt. There's a fourth gear and there's a fifth gear. The fourth gear is an amendment to the act, the Finance Act, the amendment to the Fiscal Responsibility Act 2007. An amendment has been proposed. It's gone through several hearings in the Senate, and I've attended one of the hearings and I made presentation to those hearings. So what that has done was to plug the loopholes by this, prescribing penalties for particular infringements. Because what we had asked that was not silent on penalties and fines. Now it has now prescribed fines, fine. So as you read through chapter by chapter, act by, you see 1 million and plus 1 year imprisonment,
Yeah.
1 million plus imprisonment, and you must bring back the money.
Yeah.
So it's actually the language that goes through almost every line. So that was missing. So what we are saying that Senate, please pass this immediately, because other people will know. And then the second thing that it does, the act says it is the person that did it that is going to jail. There's no question of I was directed. Nobody will direct you to steal under the act. It is you that stole, and those who colluded with you, all of you are going in. The same penalty for all of them. Then the final one, Gear 5, is giving prosecutorial power to the Fiscal Responsibility Commission, because that's the one that will say, oh yeah, you have infringed, and then issue what do you call it, summons. Then you go straight to defend yourself, not to carry the case and go to ICPC and then go to EFCC, and that will take its time, 1 year, 2 years. In fact, when I was in that Senate hearing, the EFCC representative was saying they were very warm to the idea that they're going to, fight. The man said, "Look, wait a minute, your cases are years old, so we need this revenue today, not tomorrow." so that is the Gear 5, where you know that not only that you are going to be caught, but the action will be now. The judgment is somebody's judgment, and there could even be a special court for revenue.
So, still on you, Professor Ken, what are the modalities, even though you've mentioned some things, what are the modalities or what are measures should be put in place to ensure that things like this don't repeat?
I've just said it. If you create a fine, and if you create a fine for an offense, and then there's a mechanism for enforcing it, you can go home and sleep, because the person who is going to do it knows that is not going to end next year. It will end tomorrow. So that's the biggest deterrent that you have, and it's not who directed you, because there's no such thing. So what it means that if you direct an officer, the officer will tell you, "Madam, I don't want to go to jail." So that kind of thing is just how the law has taken a different shape.
Now, Obina, just for us to round off this, oftentimes when people are, appointed into office, the impression from the public is, okay, he has had his own opportunity to have a cut of the national cake. And oftentimes, they are not proven wrong. Looking at this instance, so how can we change the narrative? And boost, of course, public confidence in
yes, it's very, how we can change this narrative is just like I said before, is, when people are vying for position, you may not know what is their intention until when you are giving them the position. Do you understand? So how these things can be checkmated is just like my senior colleague here mentioned. Let there be a policy or an act that will guide them to ensure that there will be strict compliance. If you go against this, there's an immediate punishment. Not that tomorrow they will say they will invite you tomorrow or a day after tomorrow, the case keep lingering. And secondly is that whoever that is serious, that is emphasizing on a particular position where you are not going to be an elected person, they should also look at those characters that are always focusing, or I want a particular position, maybe in the Federal Executive Council. There are some people that if you give them a position, they are not willing to serve. They only want to serve in an agency that is revenue generated, or the agency where they will be receiving grants, donors, and all those things. Yes, I'm telling you, but they cannot go to agencies where they can use their technical know-how and bring something on board that is going to help the government. So these are the characters that the government or the Mr. President should be looking at. Because punishment is not enough.
Thank you very much.
It is look at their agitation, their overzealousness. We want this, we want that. No.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Obina. That's it on Nigeria Today. But we want to appreciate Professor Ken Ife, International Development Consultant and Development Economist. Thank you so much for your time and contribution. And also Chief Obina Nwaka, Director General, Committee of Youth on Mobilization and Sensitization, CYMS. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us.
Pleasure.
And thank you for being part of the program. I am your carrier, Clinton. Goodbye.